Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Our show today is A Woman's Prerogative in partnership with E360 TV. A very warm welcome to our loyal viewers at E360 TV and a warm welcome to our friends across all our usual social platforms, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. Our topic today is Empowered Voices, the Rise of Women in Political Power. This is going to prove to be quite an interesting topic because we're going to be exploring things that maybe you might not be considering that we'll explore. This is not a political conversation. This is more about exploring the empowered voices of the rise of women in political power. My name is Caroline Heward, and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. I'm also today's presenter and host and star of the show. I'm joined, hopefully, by other panelists if they arrive, and if not, I will be doing the show on my own. So a warm welcome if you're watching on the live or on the replay. So let's get into the topic. Empowered Voices, the Rise of Women in Political Power. What does true empowerment mean for women in politics today? What I'd like to explore here is a symbolic empowerment versus actual influences and barriers to entry in the political world for women. I want to look at why we don't have many women and pose it as a question. Why is it that there are more men in this political environment and not very many women? One of the things that I would want to share with you is the fact that there isn't many role models. There isn't many people that have been women and been successful in the political environment. And then a bit later on in the show, I'm going to share with you people that really have stratosphered in the world of politics. But the general consensus is there's not very many women in politics. And it's probably because there is a huge barrier to entry. There are many more men in politics and in those positions of power in ruling governments. So the representative of women is small, and also the diversity of the ideas of women being in parliament are also small because they're looking at different things than men will probably look at. They will have a focus on equal opportunities. They will also have a focus on diversity, education, rights for women, gender equality. If you consider that these are the softer topic areas that may be not so focused upon when there is a man in parliament. I'm not saying that it's a man versus woman. What I am looking at here is the fact that there are very few women in those positions, probably because it is much more male-dominated in the topic areas. So what are the challenges that women face in the political spaces that men might not face? Well, some of the challenges that they will face are things like gender biases, the fact that there is more men than there is women, stereotypes, the fact that the stereotypical of a person in political power and ruling governments is usually dominated by the masculine energy, by men. So the media, they have a lot to do with the way that the women are portrayed and the men are portrayed in politics. And I can think about a few instances when we had Margaret Thatcher in the UK, and there seemed to be more focus on what she was wearing and her hairstyle and the colour of her clothes than there was about what she was saying. And she had to find her place to rule. And she landed up being called the Iron Lady, because even though it was the first woman for the UK to be in Parliament and to be ruling in political power, she wasn't seen towards the end as feminine. She was very much looked at as the masculine energy. And she honed her skills in terms of the way that she spoke, the way that she commanded attention, and it was all for her to win the hearts and minds of the people so that they gained her trust in what she was talking about and what she wanted to say. So the media portray women in softer ways and perhaps not as strong as men. Also, for women, there is much more of a work-life balance to consider, especially if they are wives, certainly if they have children. And so there is much more domesticity, understanding and acceptance that women will be in the home. And bearing in mind, especially in the UK particularly, because that's where I do know that there hasn't been many women, is that we are very much gender bias in the fact that we almost expect a man to be in Parliament. It is moving and it is changing slowly, but we are experiencing much more of a gender bias for men. And I do believe it's because women are considered the homemaker, they're considered the family person. So the woman would be juggling more things in her diary. She would be juggling more things that would be expected of her from society. There is an unequal scrutiny of appearance and behaviour for women than men. You can be much older and be in your very senior years for being a man, but for a woman, that there's much more scrutiny if you are much older, and it would be deemed almost inappropriate. I wonder what our values are on that and why this has become a fact. So how do you feel women's leadership styles impact policy decisions? Well, when I was looking into this and doing some research, one of the things that came up for me is the fact that women have more empathy than men. And it's not saying it's a man and woman versus, it's more a case of that women are seen as to be much more empathic and compassionate and maybe have the softer skills that might be not the case for most men in politics. They will also, for women, have much more of a collaborative approach. Now, let me give you a bit more of an understanding of what I mean by collaborative. It's that women naturally seek out collaborations. They will naturally look at where they can find the equal somewhere else to join forces. Most women will see what they will deem as a partnership, whereas most men, they will maybe be from the stereotypicals, and it's not saying every man, but the stereotypical is that most men will be competitive, whereas a woman will look at joining forces and have a more collaborative nature. So how these differ from traditional leadership norms is that very much in the Western culture, we are very much behind the times of the less developed countries where there is more women in power and more women in politics. So women will be much more interested in healthcare, education, and much more on the social policies, because that's where most women will reside in terms of the way that they see things. And this isn't a man versus woman in politics. This is much more about the norms of how women versus men will naturally see things. And it isn't that it can be only men and only women, because we are both masculine and feminine in our energies, and we can tap into our masculine energy as a woman, and we can tap into our feminine energy if we're men. But the thing is, it's about the stereotypical. It's what's perceived in the media as to be what's normally accepted. So how has the presence of women in politics influenced the broader social views on gender equality? Well, because there's not very many women in politics, there is very few role models for the younger generation to look at, to follow, to observe. And because there's very few role models, then it's understandable that the younger generations, because that's where we have to begin, educating the younger generations to see the potential, that there is potential for women in politics. And there is potential for women to do well in politics and rise to be First Lady. So the role models aren't there in the same way as they are for men, which is probably why there are more men in these positions, because when the younger generation don't see women in these positions, they will naturally, by default, see that that might not be a position that they could have themselves. But the changing perception of public is greater than ever. There is a change in society that more women are going into more masculine roles and achieving good things. This is an area that is growing, it's changing, and at the same time, there is always room for improvement. So looking at the impact of women in politics. So I've just seen a note and I can't work out what it says. So the impact on women and politics on related industries. So when women go into politics and they are seen in powerful positions, this then changes our view on women in leadership roles. This actually then shows that it's possible for women to be in leadership roles and also to be in community leadership and to be in the cutting edge of businesses and industries. So what role do grassroots movements play in supporting women in with political ambitions? It has to be community driven. It has to be that the community wants to see more women in these types of roles. Because if the community, because politicians are voted in, if the community don't see that it's possible and don't vote it in, then it doesn't happen. Mentorship. A mentorship should start early on in schools, in colleges, in universities. It should start at a place where you get to the young and you educate our younger generations that this is possible, that this is a career that is possible for them to go into. Also, networking. Networking in political environments where there are both gender equal of men and women. When there are women at these networking events, then it is possible to see what can be. And in the same breath of the women being with the men in those political environments, and there's conversation, because this is where it starts. Networking is about connecting, having conversation. And there might be interest in those networking groups as to what comes up that the women can focus on that might not have been considered or indeed looked at from the perspective of what the woman brings in the networking environments. Fundraising. Fundraising is a dynamic that is important. It's imperative in politics. If there is no fundraising, then there is no parliament. If so, all the parties will be fundraising. And so there may be barriers to entry for women that are fundraising as opposed to men, because it's about being accepted as a norm. So what needs to change? What needs to change to achieve a much more inclusive political environment? Policy reforms is somewhere that we can start. Policy reforms in terms of how we look at who comes into Parliament and the barriers to entry for women. And also the safety. Is it safe, especially as the campaigning is door to door? When campaigning is door to door, it sometimes can feel unsafe for women to be going door to door on their own, as opposed to a man going door to door, especially in our dark nights and longer evenings. And also it's important to note that women may not be welcomed at a door by a masculine or a male-dominated environment home, because it's unusual. There could be, in that space, harassment. So in order to explore moving and creating a more political environment for women to be in, to be having a look at anti-harassment measures for women, just in case they are harassed in these types of roles, and also not taken seriously by some people. And the role of media and public narratives, the role of media is so crucial that when they condemn something, the whole world seems to join in on the story. So the narrative that the media plays can be so critical to having more women. And if there was more humanist stories on women in politics, there could be greater participation from women. And now it's time for a break. It's time to move over to our sponsorship team. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to one of our sponsors.
Meet Dr. JacalynKerbeck, President, Founder, and Chief Listening Officer of USA Global TV and Radio. She is a certified life, career, and executive coach. Dr. JACALYN is the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Behind the Green Screen and Adversity to Awesome. As the listening mentor, she teaches children and their families how to listen at an elevated level through the book series titled The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. The Creative Hearts Awakening book series features heart-centric creatives who share their awakening journey. Through the Power of Listening educational course platform, people can get certified as elevated listeners on USA Global TV and Radio. Learn how to center yourself and align with nature through the power of nature, plants, and shrines. The Journey of Chakra Psychology course will educate you on the chakras and their meaning. The Intuition of the Heart course will help you understand how to trust your intuition. Learn how to face the shadows of self and understand the impact of following trends and materialism. Set boundaries and ask for permission to help establish better relationships, deeper connections, and more authentic conversations. Take your communication expertise to a higher level with the course for curious humans. After all, we are not robots. Looking to start your own podcast platform? Get everything you need in the Podcaster Pro package with Dr. JacalynKerbeck. How can music, breath, and your voice set you free? Find out with the Power of Listening courses. Dr. JACALYN is a certified meditation teacher, yoga instructor, and Juice Plus distributor. She will help you create a plan for your healthy lifestyle. As an expert in the art of interviewing with over 3,000 hosted and/or produced live broadcasts, Dr. Kerbeck helps her clients stand out as global broadcasters. Dr. Kerbeck's books are available on Amazon. Start your listening journey by reading. Tune into the Listening Mentor TV show, Fridays on USA Global TV, and learn how listening can be your superpower. Dr. JACALYN Kerbeck, MBA, DBA, Certified Holistic Life, Career, and Executive Coach, Certified Yoga Sculpt Teacher, Certified Meditation Teacher, The Listening Mentor, Singer-Songwriter, Founder, President, Chief Listening Officer of USA Global TV and Radio. drjacalyn.com. Thank you to all our elevated listeners, team members, animal characters, and co-authors. Contact us at 215-852-9406. Jacalyn at drjacalyn.com.
Hello and welcome back to A Woman's Prerogative, where our topic tonight is Empowered Voices, the rise of women in political power. We've looked at some very interesting aspects of why there isn't more women in politics, and I would like to look at some other aspects of why and what we can do to change things, and also to look at some of the women that have really achieved things in our World Global Forum of Politics. So social media has a part to play. Social media can change the way that we view things, and there are certainly a lot of young people on TikTok, as well as other social media platforms, leading the way, trailblazing the way. And it can be there that we can change perception of women in politics and rising to the power of political power in the government sectors. So what advice would you give to young people, young women that want to enter politics? I would suggest that build resilience rather than thinking it's not achievable, to build resilience in terms of being able to see it is an opportunity to break new ground. It is an opportunity that you will shine. So look at it as an opportunity, and also when you do get there, that you will be seen far more than the average person will be seen, because you are smaller in the gender of women being represented. Mentors. Seeking a mentor already in politics that is shining the light, that is shining the way, the pathway for young people to get into politics that are women. Understanding policy making. This is really crucial, because when you have an understanding and insight into what makes the world of governance work, then you will have a seat and you will have a voice. It's very important to understand how it works and not just looking at the fact that being a woman to be in politics is what you want, but to be a good voice that will carry some weight, because it is about carrying weight and message rather than just being representative as a woman. And if you can find a corner, find your path into politics by finding the right mentor to help you and guide you into knowing the ins and outs, because there is much more to understand rather than just standing there in the Houses of Parliament and reading off a script. There is much more behind the scenes, and fundraising is a very key part, and going door to door and talking, canvassing your community, canvassing people in your area and in other areas is very much part of it. So being on the road. So it can be quite a slog, especially if you're in high heels. So my invitation is to seek a mentor and to find out who's done it and find out how they did it and explore what they did and how they achieved getting into politics. Authenticity in public life. We've seen a lot, and it's very prevalent in our political world, that our governments, our politicians say one thing, and yet the behaviours don't match up to what they're saying. And there is quite a few faux pas, especially in the UK government over recent years. Not that I want to mention anything and get this into a political arena, but it is important to show your authenticity in who you are being in public life, as well as who you are showing up in your private life. With the fact that we have social media really in our faces, it's very much looking at the fact that they're seeing us day to day. So it's important to show a united front, that you are authentic both in your private and your public life, that you're not saying one thing in your public life and yet doing the complete opposite in your private life. And this is how many politicians get caught out. And this is how people, our local communities, lose faith. They lose faith and trust. So if you can get their faith, their trust in you, that you show up and you stand by what you say and you live by what you say, that makes an excellent politician. So I want to highlight some influential women through the decades, because we've looked at what we need, we've looked at why there isn't a good representation of women in politics. But I'd like to look at some trailblazers, some people that have done really well in politics and shone the light on women in power in the political environment. Because this is about empowered voices that are women's voices in the rise of political power. And there's a few people I want to mention, because when I was doing my research, I thought, yes, of course, we've had lots of people. It's just that they've been in our historical view and we probably have forgotten some of them, or they don't come to mind so quickly. One of them is Eleanor Roosevelt, US. She was a first lady and diplomat, and she was a civil rights activist. She played a pivotal role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now that is trailblazing for women. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned that women will have a different agenda. We will look at different things in a different way. And the fact that this was for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and this was her power, her claim to fame. She was the First Lady. And I, for one, knew a lot about and studied Eleanor Roosevelt in terms of my history. Indira Gandhi from India. She was the First Lady and the only female Prime Minister in India. Her leadership was during times of economic and political turmoil, and so she is another trailblazer. Gota, I need to make sure that I pronounce this right, so forgive me if I don't. This Prime Minister is from Israel. Golda Meir. She was the fourth Prime Minister of Israel and one of the first women in the world to hold such a high-ranking government position and title. Now, I mentioned earlier on about Margaret Thatcher. Now, for the UK, she really was a trailblazer. She may not have been liked by many, but she made a difference. She did change things. She shut things down. But one of the things that I remember about her is that she was known as the Iron Lady. I was quite young at the time when Margaret Thatcher came into power. And I remember thinking, oh, great, a woman in power. We're going to have a softer time. It's going to be easier. There's going to be much more nice things. But it wasn't like that. And that surprised me. But what it did mean, and one of the things that she trailblazed for, was to buy your own home. She made it possible for people to buy their own home. And she's probably one of the reasons why I was able to buy my own home later on in years, and how my mum, my parents were able to buy their own home. So even though sometimes politics can give us some very negative things, it also has some positives as well. She was the first female Prime Minister of the UK, and she significantly, and I don't say that lightly, she significantly influenced conservative politics globally because she was the first woman. And it was at a time that there wasn't many men in politics and in power. Eileen Johnson Sirleaf from Libya. She was Africa's first elected female head of state. She led Liberia through post-Civil War recovery and won a Nobel Prize for her efforts. When I did my research and found that, I felt very humbled by the fact that this woman, against all odds, achieved such notoriety and through her work achieved a Nobel Prize for her efforts. It actually brought a tear to my eye in joyous celebration that we do have trailblazers in our world of political power. This list cannot be complete without mentioning Hillary Clinton from the US. She was the first female majority party nominee for US President, Secretary of State. She's a long-standing advocate for women's rights. And really what I want to look at here is the fact that in reading out and in highlighting some of these notable, high-ranking people that were women, trailblazers in our world of political power, the things that they are known for and remembered for are because of the fact that they were looking at the more feminine things to make a woman in power, the things that they care about and the things that make a difference for the human world as well as the political world. I'd like to look at some contemporary leaders now. Kamala Harris, a US Vice President, she's breaking multiple barriers. She's the first female Black and South Asian person to host the office. Let me repeat that again because it's huge and it's current. She is breaking multiple barriers by being the first female Black and South African person to hold office. She's also the youngest woman elected to the US Congress, representing a new generation of politically engaged women. And I'd like to mention some other people that have, I feel, honourable mentions. And one of those people that I followed and looked at and followed when she first did her very first notable and sensational speech is Greta Thunberg from Sweden. She has been influential in global environmental politics. She has shone the light. Being so young, she has shone the light and trailblazed through. She's not quite in politics, but she is being seen as a trailblazer. And she has also inspired activism with our youth and our younger generation. Well, it's coming to the end of our show. And I forgot to tell you about what I am and who I am and what I do. I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and I help people bust their stress. How do I do that? I help people break through the root causes that create their original stress, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral, whether it's the ache and pain physically, back pain, neck pain, hair loss, whether it's a physical pain in the body, whether it's an emotional pain, sadness, loneliness, heartache, or whether it's something that they're complaining about, Some people walk around and they say, I'm not stressed, but then they're not sleeping at night, or they're complaining about the relationship that they're in. It's that's causing the stress. That's the imbalance, the symptom that's making the stress. And I work with you to identify the root cause using root cause therapy and chakra psychology, how the mind and body connects and what happens to the person physically, emotionally, mentally, behaviorally when there's an imbalance. And when the root cause is identified, which sometimes goes way back into their childhood, mainly, always, not always, but many times it goes back into a trauma in their childhood or something that happened that might seem insignificant in their adult life, but affected their lives in their adulthood from childhood. And identifying the root cause releases emotion, and it releases the trapped emotion and allows the emotion to release and them to feel free and more peaceful and relaxed. It calms the mind and it gives an incredible night's sleep. I'm offering for a short time a 1 hour consultation over the phone or audio or video to identify 3 root causes of symptoms that you have, whether they be physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral. And it's at a ridiculously introductory price of £50. So do reach out to me on nomorestress at live.co.uk or call me on +44 if you're international, 0 if you're local, 7523 120 189. Reach out and book in your introductory incredible offer for £50 for 1 hour as a consultation to break through the patterns of those symptoms that are creating your stress. Before we go, please do subscribe to our VIP exclusive community. Become an exclusive VIP community member and have first access to our newest videos, photographs and insights on the British royal family. It's live streamed on YouTube and USA Global TV. So do join up to be a VIP exclusive community member. Thank you very much for listening. It's been my pleasure to host the show tonight for you, A Woman's Prerogative, in partnership with E360 TV. And I look forward to seeing you next week. We are on Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 7 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, as our clocks have gone backwards now. We are in the winter months. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much if you're here on the live or the replay. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye for now.
This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes. Building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, PREEZ.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we've evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com.